Okay, everybody. Hello, it's your boy, Coach Vic. Glad to be here with you, certified land investor. Today, I have a treat for you. I have a very accomplished land investor, Brionne Moss. I met her at a high-level land investing conference a couple of weeks ago. She actually blew my mind with a lot of things that she was doing and made me feel bad about myself for not being as accomplished as her. No fault of her own. She didn't mean to do that. It's just because I'm hard on myself sometimes. But she has graciously accepted my invitation to be interviewed and let us know a little bit about her, some of her secrets, some of her strategies, and anything else that I feel that can inspire you guys. Hopefully, she's able to give you a little bit of that. So, without further ado, Brionne, it's good to meet you. Thank you for being here with us. Um, so, anything you want to tell the people before we jump into this?
No, just thank you for having me, Vic. I appreciate the invitation, and I'm an open book.
Awesome, awesome. So, why don't you start by telling us how did you find land investing? Like, what made you do that as opposed to like, there's a million other things that you could have done in real estate alone, let alone from just different side hustles. What about land investing that attracted you that made you like, hey, let me give this a shot?
So it wasn't land investing in particular. I'm like that serial entrepreneur since I've been young, so I've dabbled in multiple things. I'm sure as just as much as everybody else, everything from Amazon FBA to secret shopping. So I was listening to a podcast called Side Hustle Nation one day, and I heard about it was actually Mark Podolsky, and he was talking about land investing, and I was like, that's interesting. So one more thing to try. So I tried it out, and I didn't particularly go with that program, but I kind of, started joining the Facebook groups, found Reed Tipster, found a couple of other, gurus, and I jumped into it and just went from there.
It's funny because I'm pretty sure I heard that same podcast episode, and and it got me into it too. I believe so. There was Side Hustle Nation, and so there's one by Nick Loper, that podcast, and there's the other one by the small guy in San Diego. I can't remember his name, but
Mhm.
both of them had a land investor on around the same time.
Okay.
And so, like, I heard two different versions of the same thing, and it was probably both. It was either Mark and a student or something like that. And
Mhm.
yeah, so I think I heard the same thing and kind of like had like, oh, okay, that's interesting. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this. So you said you were this serial entrepreneur. Is there a particular reason why you want to start your own side hustle or your own business, or is this something that just like, hey, this is enjoyable to me and I just want to do it?
I just always had aspirations to start something on my own. So whatever that would be, I just wanted to be able to grow. So I wouldn't hit that ceiling. I have a corporate background, I'm sure pretty much just like everybody else. And I was doing pretty well in corporate. But I got to a point where I'm like, I don't want to go into management. It's just not going to be my thing. So either I'm just going to stay here for the next 25 years, or I can try and, grow myself on my own. So,
Okay. And so once you felt that, like, hey, this ain't what I want to do, I want to do something on my own, that's when you jumped into the other things. Like, how did you find your starting point? So, for example, I learned about a lot of the other stuff after I got into land investing, and that stuff lured me away from land investing. But it sounds like you were the opposite approach. How
mhm.
did you kind of like, hey, there's other things I can do, and it's probably going to be online based? Like, what kind of got you started, or I wouldn't say started, but kind of like let you know that that was a possibility?
um, just a whole bunch of research really is all it is. I wasn't particularly targeting land investing. I did have an interest in real estate. So I've looked into storage, I've looked into mobile homes, I've looked into just apartments, I've looked into everything. And this had a low barrier of entry, so that also helped.
Got it. Got it. So we're going to jump ahead in time and then we're going to go back because I want to tease the people. So currently in your current land investing business, now, if you don't want to share, it's all good. We'll look at you different. But if you don't want to share, um, I won't hold you to it. But what are you making in your current land investing business now? You can break it down monthly or yearly. A projection is fine as well.
Sure, sure. So I would say since I've joined, so just to give you a little background, I started in 2018. So now it's 2022. So I left my job last year, which was 2021. So this is actually my first year full time.
Mm.
So I think it's been pretty consistent in growing every single year. I want to say the first year, obviously I'm just doing this part time. I made about maybe like 25,000. That's
Mhm.
net profit. And then the year after I hit about 60. And then the year after that, I hit 120. And then last year I hit 300. So this year I'm on track to make about 400, 450.
Hey, you owe me lunch. Lunch is on you.
I'm broke, man. I'm broke. I'm just
Sure. You profited 400K. No, that's those are fantastic numbers. Now we turn back the clock. You hear the Mark Podolsky, podcast. You decide to go a different route than going. I went through his stuff. That kind of taught me the game originally. How did you learn the game? Did you just use a regular program? Did you get a one-on-one coach? Was it just trial and error from free stuff? What was your journey?
so um anybody that knows me, everybody thinks I'm a cheapo. I just try and get everything for free, for cheap, on the low. So that's exactly what I did here. I heard the podcast, I looked up all the gurus. To me, the best person in the game at that time was Seth, and he has the Retipster um, program, but I didn't buy his program, unfortunately. At that point in time, if you went to his website, he literally posted everything on his website and blogs. So I just consumed all his content over the course of 2 weeks, and I just jumped straight into it. Now, what I will say is that, you have some trial and errors doing things on your own. I did later on, just last year, join a program by Clint Turner, highly recommend it. And I joined his coaching program to, get the mentorship, networking. And I will say that doing that catapulted my business in other ways. So I'm not against coaching. I do think it helps you get further quicker, but I just didn't go that route.
No, I hear you. And coaching can be expensive. And if this is an area that you're not sure you want to be in, coaching obviously isn't something that you want to jump into. You want to coach when you're like, hey, this is it. I'm going to take this seriously. I'm ready to go all in. And if you're not at that point, coaching is probably just a waste of your time and money. So I totally agree with you there. Obviously, I coach people and I've seen both people who are into it and they're ready to go. And I can tell when we on that phone, I'm trying to get to see if they're a fit. And they're like, oh, no, I'm ready. They may not have a bunch of capital at their disposal, but they're like, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Those are the people that do great. And there's other people who had a ton of money and they're kind of, I don't know. I'll see how. And then they quit. So I totally hear you. Now, tell us a little bit about some of the trial and error that you had when you first got started, right? So you got all this free information. Seth put all this stuff on the blog. I remember hearing all about that. You use it, it's working to some degree, or maybe 100% working, whatever it is. But as you said, when you're by yourself and you don't know what you don't know, your mistakes are going to happen. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
What were some of those mistakes that you kind of ran into during that time?
I can tell you some of my biggest mistakes, and you probably hear it over and over in the land investing business, is due diligence. And I got caught up on that, I think 2 times. So it's extremely important. One of the biggest problems I had was, or should I say the biggest property, I'll just talk about a property that I purchased. I purchased a property. It had legal access. I think it was in Galveston. I do a lot of investing in Texas. Galveston, right by the beach, little small lot, half acre or something like that. And it had access, but the access to the property was all grass. So it's right by the beach. So, this is the time I was doing a whole bunch of Facebook ads, or should I say Facebook Marketplace, posting there. And I had tons of people reaching out, just tons of people. Oh, I've been looking for something in this area, I want to go see it, blah, blah, blah. So people would go, and then all I hear is crickets. And I'm like, what's going on? I've had this property listed for like a month and a half now. And I started asking them, I said, hey, you went visit the property? What happened? yeah, I couldn't find it, or yeah, I couldn't drive to it, or no, I don't want to have to build a road. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I purchased the property for 10,000 and I had it listed for 25,000. Um, and then I lowered the price. I'm like, maybe just a little bit lower price, 18,000, still nothing. So finally, I did end up losing money on this one.
Mm.
After photographers, drones, all that, I'm in about, I don't know, 10,750. And I sold it to a guy on, it's an app called 5 Miles, something like OfferUp or Let Go. And he purchased it for 10,000. So not a huge loss, but I did lose money and it was a big lesson learned.
So going back, let's say you can go back to in time and tell your former self, like right before you're about to buy, what would you say for this particular lot?
I would say that if you have a checklist and you know what you're supposed to be checking, stick with it. I think when people are investing, they get so into, but I know I can make this much, or this is, you got to keep that part out of it. You got to just think tactical, logical. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And I think I just wanted it to work. So learn from that.
Got it. So do you think back then, or let's say that deal came up, do you think you'll be able to get that same deal but negotiate down the price or make it worth your while some other way? Or maybe you're better at sales now where you buy for the same 10K, but you're able to still move it at the prices you're asking for originally.
Yeah, so at this point in time, I would do one of two things where I make sure my acquisitions person is very, very diligent on access, particularly, especially in Texas, because it's not an easy way to get access. Like you don't automatically have access if it's landlocked like some other locations. So
Mhm.
one or two things, either we just toss it, or if there's some kind of like maybe weird access or very minimal or concerning or roads. The second thing is I've built roads before. So I'm very versed in that area now. I know how much it costs. We factor that into the price and negotiate that. And the third thing is we've newly started doing double closings. So we'll just get it under contract and list it and see if we get any bites. And if not, no foul, no harm, no foul.
Yeah, like earlier when I was saying, there are certain things that you were doing, I was like, why am I doing that? That's one of the things I really got into. And I had this limiting belief that double closing is only done when you have a previous relationship with a
Mhm.
buyer. And while that does make things much simpler and make things much faster and smoother, it doesn't have to be that way. So I want to personally thank you for kind of lighting that fire under me to let me know, hey, I don't have to sit there and only get stuff in a particular area because a person wants it. I
Yeah.
can do this anywhere. And if it ends up that nobody really wants this property, then I just save myself a bunch of time, headache, heartache, and all that. So I want to thank you for that. Question though,
Yeah.
you're building roads now. So what are you,
Yes.
John Henry? He's going out there and like,
No,
tell
I
me
mean,
about that process. How did number one, like in general, like what's like general cost for that? This is more for me than for everybody that's listening. And number two, like, what's that time frame? Like, just kind of give me like a quick
yeah.
overview of that road building process.
So it's gonna vary per area. Like I said, I invest mostly in Texas, so my information is coming from Texas. Um, Typically we look to build a road if like I said, if it looks landlocked, if it's close to a county road or a city road, then we don't just automatically toss it. We inquire further if there was a previous easement recorded, if they have an easement, or if we can get an easement from a neighbor. So yes, it is a lot of work. Sometimes you have to go that extra mile. One of the most recent projects, it was a property about 700 feet from the road. There was clearly an easement, but it was overgrown. Literally, you barely could even walk through it. You definitely couldn't
Common,
drive to it.
super common.
So I'm like, this is, I mean, they're giving it to me for a good price. So I think we were buying it for 45,000. And we were going to list it for 140,000. So I'm like, we can afford to put a road in. So pretty much in Texas, you don't have to do asphalt, you don't have to do concrete. It's called Caliche Road in Texas, and it's like crushed rock, gravel,
Hmm.
limestone, just a whole bunch of materials they threw together. You're looking anywhere, depends on if they have to clear or not. If there's clearing involved, it can get all the way up to like $30 per linear square feet, per linear foot. And on the lower end, you can do about $15 to $20.
So that if there's clearing involved, that's around $21,000 or so
Yeah.
for that
Yeah.
700-foot road. Got it.
Yep.
How long
That's
does
on the
that
PCA
take?
51.
From okay, we're going to do this road thing to like, all right, your road's completed.
It's fast. It's so fast. It's like all this money and it was that fast. But anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks, depending on how long the road is. Like
Oh, wow.
we got it listed after a week and a half. It took him 2 weeks, but that's because they had 3 rain days, so they couldn't do any work while it was raining. So I mean, it was super quick. So I was surprised. It's more so just finding somebody. Everybody seems to be backed up.
Mm,
Um, so it's finding people who have availability, really.
got it. Got it. Okay. So you threw out some pretty big numbers, like, your first lot was 10,000. This lot you're talking about here, you're buying for 45,000. How are you funding these deals? Is this coming out of your pocket? Are you using other investors? Give us a little bit of background about that.
Yeah, sure. So when I first started, um, I actually pulled out my 401k. I did a loan for $7,000. It's not a lot, but I did a loan for $7,000, and I'm like, let me get started in here just to prove the concept. I ended up buying a property for like $2,500, and literally a week and a half later, I sold it for $6,500. And I'm like, wow, this really works. So from there, I just kept recycling the money. That was the first year, and that's when I made that $20,000. And I'm like, this really works. So saved up a little bit of money, got some more money, and I just outside of using my own money, I still felt like I didn't have enough money because I wanted to do bigger. I didn't start with the 500, 750. I started going up to the 5,000, 10,000, 15 purchase price. So what I did, I had pretty good credit. So I literally found almost every bank I can look up in my local area. And I went applied for lines of credit that
Mm,
next year. I ended up getting approved for 4 line of credits. They started me off pretty low. One was 15,000, one was 20,000, another one was 20,000, and one was 50,000. So while they were pretty low, except for that last one, since I applied for so many, and you only get like 1 or 2 hits, even though I applied to like 10 different banks,
mm.
that really got me going. Though I would only suggest it if you know what you're doing. Like I wouldn't just go, just spending a whole bunch of money because you got to pay it back. What were
Right.
you gonna say? You're gonna say something?
You say it was 3%?
No, no, no. I don't know what the percentage is. Anywhere between 7 and 15% for
Okay.
all.
So it's almost credit card like,
Yeah.
but unlike a credit card, like their cash advances, their interest rate's even higher than it would be if you just buy something off a credit card. Because like if you
Well,
do a
it
cash advance with your credit
depends.
card, you're not going to get, that same rate, and they won't give you all of your amount that you're able to like buy with the card. So if I have $15,000 on a credit card, or excuse me, $15,000 spending limit, I can't pull $15,000 off of that card. They'll give me like 1,000, and that'll be it for a cash
Mhm.
advance. So
Yeah.
how does the work? So like if you get a line of credit from a bank, this is great information. Help people writing this down. Is it just deposited into your checking account? And do you have to have like a business account to do this?
No, so I didn't have any business acumen at that time. So I did it all on my personal credit. So they really are just looking at my personal credit, what's my debt to income ratio, all that, and that's how I got approved for it. I had a pretty good job, so and I didn't really have any debt, so I don't know how much that would impact the next person.
Got it.
But pretty much it's just like a checking account, or it looks like a checking account, except it always says the amount that you have. Whenever you want to use it, you literally go there and say transfer to whatever account or go pull it out in cash, and it just goes down, and then you just pay on it monthly basis just like you would a credit card, and
Got
just
it.
keep recycling
That's that's a bar right there. Who you, Nas? Jay-Z?
it.
That's a bar. Because I own my home. Me and my wife, we own our home, and we pull it out an equity line so we can do some repairs and things like that. And it sounds exactly the same.
Yeah.
where there's a different, you log into your regular bank account and you have a different account underneath your main one, and it has your equity line of how much you borrowed or whatever, and like it'll tell you the payment, stuff like that. Wow, that's huge. That's huge. So
Yeah.
as long as your credit is good and your debt to income ratio is at is at a good spot, they'll give you money. And then
Yeah.
so you did this for multiple banks, so you're able to pretty much add that up.
Yeah, because what happens is if you apply to all the banks at the same time, they're not seeing that you applied to 3, 4, 5 other banks, especially if it's within a week's time frame. So it looks like, oh, this is the only bank I applied to. And then now that I have these 4 or 5 banks that I have these line of credits for, I use the line of credits. And then every 2 years, those inquiries, it's like 2 inquiries, they fall off. And then I go back and then I apply for more. So like I went back to one of the banks that gave me 50 and they're like, yeah, we'll up it to 75. I went back to another one. Yeah, we'll up it to 80. So I just keep reapplying to the same banks and they give me more money because I've been a good customer.
I was about to say that. So when you pay back the banks, are you paying all up? So let's do this. Take me through a common scenario of money that you're using, you're funding from your personal line of credit, and you buy a property. You got to go through that whole process. You sell it, and however long it takes. Tell us about, hey, during that time I'm paying back in monthly increments, or I'm just waiting until I sell it and I just pay the whole thing back. Like, how do you like to do this?
Yeah, so I buy a property for 20,000. Let's say I go to Chase. Chase doesn't do line of credit, so I'm just using Chase. I go to Chase and I say,
Wait, they don't do line of credit?
they don't do business line of credits. No.
I'm gonna go talk to them and whip their ass. That's who I bank with. Messing with me.
I know
Anyway,
I would like to get, because I bank with Chase as well, but I would like to get one, but no, they don't do it.
make me
But
sick.
it's personal or business. It's one or the other, but I don't think they do either. But you can check.
Okay, well, fair enough. But anyways, I'm sorry to interrupt. Go on.
So buying the property, time for closing day. I say, can I get a cashier's check to XYZ title company? I literally get the cashier's check, put it in the envelope with the closing package, and send the money directly to them. I don't ever pull it out in cash. You don't want to mess around with,
Yeah, no, that's how you get robbed.
So $20,000 out. Let's say it takes me 3, 4 months to sell the property. Every month I pay, $200, $300, however much is on there. And then once I sell the property, I pay it off, and then I take the rest back and put it in my account for whatever.
See, this is why I'm talking to you right now. See, these are the things that if you do not network with the right people and you talk to a bunch of broke people who have a lot of speculation but who don't do, well, you're gonna be just like them, speculating and talking shit about everybody else while you staying broke with them. This is why I'm talking to you. This is why the people need to hear your voice. This is fantastic information.
So I actually don't use my line of credits anymore. So one of the benefits I will one of the benefits I will say of coaching is it sounds as simple as it sounds, is networking. So when I joined this coaching program, the biggest thing that I have gotten from the program is to be able to network and find funders. So if you hang around in the land group, you'll find a whole bunch of people, yeah, I'll fund your deal, but they want to take 50% of your profit. To me, that's a lot. That's a lot. I'm doing all this work and you want half my profit. And then it's not half of what you've given me, half of how much I make. So even if I got a smoking deal, you still get half of it. So I didn't really care for that. But joining this group, I was connected with a funder. And the key to finding funders is to find somebody that's not in lane. Find somebody that just wants to turn their money, and you can just throw out random numbers and they will take far less than 50%, far less. But I found a guy, we did one deal together, and it was actually that road deal I was telling you about. And after that deal, I made him a good bit of money. And he's like, hey, Bree, I just want to do every deal with you. And I'm like, what? Okay, let's do it. So since then, he's literally funded all of my deals. We do a 70-30 split. It's not the best, but it's better than 50-50 in my
100%. 100%.
And I'm not putting up any money, literally anything, except for the mailers. Of course, I got to pay for the mailers, photography and stuff like that.
This is my Birdman gift animation here. And hear all that money. Now, With that said, why don't you give us like networking is huge. It's huge, right? Like Clint's group, I'm in it, you're in it. Like it's mostly for the big players, right? It's not for the person just starting out. But once you're in a room with people like that, how do you like to present yourself so you're like, hey, I belong. I'm a peer. I'm just like you, because I know there's times that I felt that way where I was like, I don't belong, even though I'm doing the same thing, because like, well, I'm not doing these multi-million-dollar subdivides, or
Yeah.
I'm not doing these fancy things. I don't know if you felt the same way or not, but when you're in there, how do you like carry yourself to show, maybe not to them, maybe it's more for
Yeah.
yourself. I belong too.
I think it's really more about finding a way to provide value to that next person. Everybody is doing something completely different. You can talk to a million people in this space and they're all doing it differently. Even though there's, 5 or 6 programs, people do their spin-offs and they're doing this different. They're investing this way. They're using these different tactics. So typically whatever you're doing that is different in your business, whether it's the type of CRM you're using, whether it's the hiring tactics that you're using, whether it's the areas or the type of mailers or anything that you're doing different, just share the information. There's no reason to keep it, because at the end of the day, even if you present to a group of 100 people, usually 10% might actually take it and do it. So, I mean, to me, I don't like to hide knowledge. And I just find that me sharing knowledge has always brought me something better back. Just that karma effect.
I agree. I got a group. A lot of people won't hear this. That's why I knew someone like you would be a good fit, because I knew you had a lot to give. I didn't know you had the same philosophy as I do. So I do appreciate that. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So basically, give more than you take. So what
Yeah.
that means is you don't go into different groups trying to spam people, trying to buy your deals or trying to do your thing. You go into the group and you give information, you give knowledge, you give your opinion, you give feedback, and you help others to do that. Who
Yeah.
was it that said this? Maybe you heard this quote. I think it was Zig Ziglar. You give enough people what they want, they'll eventually give you what you want.
Mhm.
Is I guess you live by that same credo, so to speak, even if it wasn't an intentional thing. So that's amazing. All right, we're coming to the end. Now, why don't you tell me this? What is your day-to-day like? And then I'll have a follow-up after that.
Okay, so this year my day to day has changed significantly. And once again, I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but it was due to the program and the coaching that I received. It was a very hard push. Hey, if you're running a business, act like it's a business. So it was a very hard push for hiring. So this year I hired one, two, three. I hired 3 people this year on my team, acquisitions manager and some VAs to help with day-to-day tasks. And it did take a lot of work. It took a lot of training. It took a lot of onboarding. It took a lot of hiring and firing multiple times. But now that I have these people in place, they're literally doing 85 to 90% of everything. And I built out my CRM. One thing I will say is key, at least for me and my business, and I think any business can use it, is automation. Automation has made a world of difference. So with the automation and these new hires, I mean, I'm spending what I do. You say, what do my day to day look like?
Mhm.
The way my CRM is set up, I still do review some deals. So there's some deals for me to review. I'll log in and review. We work out of Slack. So anytime somebody on my team has a question, they Slack me and I'll respond through 3 or 4 Slacks throughout the day, which, this is text, this is on my phone. So outside of that, I'm really spending time looking at other pieces to grow the business. What are some different mailing tactics? What are some different, how should I change up my letter? What should I do? More of the higher level. So I am only 10% in the business right now, and everything else is growing. And I'm just working on, growing other businesses as well right now. So I don't spend too much time in my business now.
Oh, aren't we fancy? So if you had to add up the time per day that you're doing now that you're a big player in this whole thing, hour a
Not a big
day,
player. There's much bigger players. I'm
okay,
still a
medium
little,
player.
okay.
You spend an hour a day, 2 hours, 8 hours.
maybe 1 to 2 hours a day, depending on the day. Some days I don't do anything, but 1 to 2 hours a day.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. All right. So the follow-up to that, so you spend about an hour, 2 hours a day. Actually, I guess this is a two-part question, or I guess you answer it in two ways. The first way is, before you made this push to be more of a business owner and not just a quote unquote land investor, how are you going about doing your business? Like, were you mailing every day, or was it just like once a month or every other week or whatever? How often were you fielding calls? How were you doing that? So like a high level overview of how you were operating and some of the tasks that you were doing before you made this transition.
So before I made this transition, I wasn't mailing day to day. I still mail on a monthly basis. So prepared the mailers. I was doing about 5,000 mailers a month. So it always took a really long time for me to do the mailers, hours, multiple hours.
Why is that?
Um, because I've just been trying to deploy different tactics, and some tactics, especially with blind offers, just require a lot of nitpicky APNs and zip codes and subdivisions, and just trying to, you know, do it to the T. And then sometimes you just got to realize, 80% is okay. So I've been tweaking that quite a bit. But a lot of time was spent on the mailers. I did have someone who was taking the call. So that took off a big burden even before I started hiring. But outside of that, I was still comping, which took up a significant amount of time. I was still drafting all the contracts. That still takes up time when you're doing all that. I wasn't doing the due diligence. I had another company doing the due diligence.
Who did the due
And
diligence, and were they doing a title search in that due diligence?
No. At first I was using Landmasters.
Okay,
I do not recommend Landmasters. I had a poor experience with them.
got it.
Now I'm using a company called Parcel Review. They let me customize, what I'm looking for in due diligence. So I've been using them since. I feel like they do a great job. Doing the due diligence, and I think I was at about 20 to 30% sub 5,000 properties in which I was purchasing, which required notary closings. That took up a significant amount of time. So since
Like
then,
finding a mobile notary to send out to the seller, and then
yes,
coordinating that deal or coordinating that, getting the deeds back
yes,
and all that. Got
yes,
it.
that took up a significant amount of time. So I pretty much got rid of that. I'm not doing, we pretty much close everything through title. I try and avoid those deals unless they just randomly show up, but I don't target sub 5,000 because I don't want to deal with the notary deal. So, but yeah, I pretty much was just doing everything other than taking the calls at that time. I was doing everything. So yes, I was still working 6, 7 hour days.
And then you built it up. So now you don't have to do that anymore. I will say this too, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Because you did everything manually for a little while, that's how you're able to tell when other people who are in place doing a job, if they're doing it properly. And it's also give you a way to train. Like, this is how I've done it. This is how I've been successful. You got to do it my way because this is my company. This is my business. And I think without that experience, you probably be losing a lot more money because, like, well, how would you know if they're doing a good job or not?
Yeah.
You have to wait until things go bad, and you don't want to have to wait that long before you make a decision. So, okay,
Yeah.
damn.
But I will say that if I had a recommendation, I would have hired sooner. Like when I say it has made a world of difference, like it has just completely transformed the business, just hiring. But yes, I completely agree that you need to be able to do it yourself, or else I wouldn't be able to answer all these questions that they come back with, my team, when they don't know what's going on or something new pops up. Pretty much any question they've asked me, I've known the answer to 95% of it because I've done so many deals.
Mm, there it is, right there. That experience, it's the best teacher out there. Um, this has been fantastic. Like, I've learned a lot. Like, the questions I was asking for me, I don't care who else is listening to this. So if no one else watches this, I'm cool. So one last thing I'll ask is there anything that you want to give people like advice or anything like that as they're like getting started in this, or they're already started but they're playing at a low level and it's
Mhm.
time for them to kind of level up?
I would say if you have the capability, well, anybody should really have the capability. I think do bigger deals. And I just say that because the amount of time and effort it takes to do the bigger deals, and I'm just speaking of just strictly flips. I'm not talking about subdivisions and all of that. The amount of time and effort it takes to do the bigger deals is actually slightly less than it takes to do the smaller deals because you are giving out all the work to third parties, meaning the title company. And a lot of people might be in the mindset, oh, well, if I buy this big property, it's going to sit for 9 months, 12 months. It's going to sell the same. It's going to sell the same. Yeah, if you get to, I don't know, above 150, 200, 250, then yes, there's a smaller buyer pool. But below that, I mean, it's the same. It's the same amount of effort, if not even less. And if you say, I don't have the money, go get the 50-50 funder. It's better to make something out of 50-50 than nothing, or than all of just 10,000.
That's fantastic. And I guess to drive that home, it's better to get a small part of the watermelon than a whole grape. But in
Yeah.
some cases, even a whole grape is better than nothing.
Yeah.
So, and if we turn down deals because we don't have the money, then let's keep it real. Everybody has the money. I mean, I'm not saying they got $10,000 or $20,000 laying around, but
Yeah.
when we wanted something, we found a way to get it.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So use that same resourcefulness to kind of help you fund a deal. Find a
Yeah.
partner, find some investors.
Just do it.
Um,
Once you do it, you're gonna just say, wow, that wasn't bad at all. And then you see such a bigger profit for the same amount of work. So
Very inspiring. No, this is I knew it. I'm glad. I'm so glad we had this conversation. Um, Before we wrap up, is there, can the people reach you in any way, like an email or something, or you secretive and you don't want to be found because they're gonna be hitting you up and they're gonna be asking for all these gems?
no, I'm like I said, I'm an open book. Like anybody who has ever asked me for information or documents or help with something, I'm always open. You can email me at info at mossyland, MOSSYLAND.com.
Awesome. Well, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for all the info you shared. I'm going to implement a couple things right now, actually, because you might give me a line of credit. Um, that right there is a game changer. And yeah, there's a lot of people out there looking to fund deals. They're not necessarily in the land game. And traditionally, if they're a note buyer outside the land game, they want they just want like an 8 or 9% return. So if you give them
Yeah,
20%, 30%, they're over the moon. And that's
yeah,
how Brionne
absolutely.
got that one. So
And
yeah,
it's
no, that's a
20% of their
fantastic
money,
relationship.
not 20% of your profit, 20% of their money. So
Yeah,
that's even less.
exactly. Exactly. So if you give them 15,000 after you sell, you're just gonna give them 18,000 back
Mm.
and you keep whatever else is left. So the deals are out there, the people are out there, especially now that the recession is quote unquote happening. A lot of assets for cheap. This is the time, especially if you partner up with someone who does have that ability. No, that was great. That was great. Appreciate your time. And again, hit her up if you have questions, or hit me up if you have questions because I'll be glad to answer them. But that was another great interview, because I only get the best people for y'all. So I appreciate you, Brionne. Thank you everybody for listening. Coach Vic, I will talk to you guys next time. Peace.